I noticed that that question somehow was going to be answered by me in my capacity as the Commissioner for Gender. Because I'm not quite sure, I'm not quite sure that we got an answer, and I believe that maybe the great challenge is that we want to begin to see how it is that not only do we get women who want to get into political power to have their skills transferred, but we also want to try and get to see how we can get many more of our leaders, particularly the men, to also take on the gender issues a lot more vigilantly and a lot more aggressively. So we want to also think that and remember that for women to make a difference, such as the one that I'm talking about, then when they get into politics, they should not simply imitate what men do. And I say this knowing very well that I'm running for the Alego Usonga political seat. And I'm sure that as I talk to you and you hear me, you know that I'm going to get it, don't you? I really believe that you can see that I think that the women need to first start from the premise where they do know why they want to get into this. And I think women have to get comfortable with being powerful. I think most women whisper, they're not so sure they want to run for politics because they don't want to be comfortable with power. You must be comfortable with power, because when you're comfortable with power, then you know what to do with it. And I believe really that women need to know that what they want to do is when they get in there, they don't just imitate what the men do. They don't just imitate the way men have handled politics over the years. And when I say this, I see some faces looking at me like you can't be making those general statements. I know that not all men are the same, but I do know that part of the challenge that we've had is a situation where we use power in a way that excludes. And I think what I'm asking is if we have men who think like that, well and good. But I'm specifically saying that this is something that women can do. I'm also saying that I would like that the women remember that they will generally be judged much more harshly than men when they engage in leadership and in government, and therefore they would want to take time to network and to learn from others, and in particular to avoid a situation where they wait and plead and lobby and beg and ask, but they do not take, because nobody ever hands over power. I would like, because I know that you have already gotten my message, that I believe that the role of women in leadership is that they organize, that they then engage and take power. To conclude by quoting what His Excellency the President Mwai Kibaki told us as women on the 21st of October when we were looking at Nairobi Plus 21, and he said that women need to know that men are not opposed to their taking power. They are not even hostile to the idea of taking power. They are just not in a hurry. And he told us very, very clearly that if you, as women, want to make a difference and feel that you have an agenda, then you have got to organize and to remember that men are not in a hurry. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you, and I truly believe that my message is that women do have a role in leadership, both in and outside government, and that is to the extent that they will feel that as women they have an agenda that is to share power and is to use power in a way that is inclusive. I thank you very much. Indeed, and has indicated that the women have to organize to take political power, and that she's saying that if women are going to organize to take political power, then it means they're going to introduce an alternative concept of power. And she argues, and I agree, that this would be a situation where they are organizing to have power with and not power over the citizen. That they're going to be organizing to see how it is that when they access power, they have an agenda and a set of issues that indeed are consultatively derived from the people and not ideas that they decide upon and then they go and take and make the people's idea. Secondly, that if women organize to take power with a deliberate effort to introduce an alternative concept of power, then they need to know that they have a very challenging role, because they are indeed going to be a voice of conscience. That they would want to acknowledge that there are times, such as the one that we have now in Kenya and in a number of African countries, where there is politics of defending the status quo. That the tendency is really for people to take positions and then to interpret whatever information is available to defend the status quo. I think if we continue to discuss today, for example, about whether there is economic growth or not, whether there's a trickle down or not, whether we are going to be talking about this, there's a sense in which there tends to be a positioning that people take for ideological or any other reasons. And if women are going to be introducing an alternative concept of power, they really need to recognize and think before they get into the whole game that they are going to be having to be going against the tide in a way, because they are going to be, in a number of ways, dealing in a situation where people are used to defending the status quo, and that they are going to pay the price of being a voice that sometimes is a lone voice. This requires that we do not just get women to run for political office without giving some deliberate sharing. And I want to say that I am lucky to have twice been in a meeting where we have been with the current Minister for Constitutional Affairs, Honorable Martha Karua, and the Minister for Health, Charity Ngilu, along with the other women parliamentarians, with the exception of Honorable Njoki Ndung'u. She was the one who was not able to join us. We had a chance to be together for about 5 days in Sweden to talk about what it means to be a woman and to have power. And I think that the third point for me is, if women are organizing to see that they're going to be the voice of conscience, especially in a country, in a context such as we have in Kenya and as we have in other African countries, then it does require for them to stop and reflect and say, what does it really mean to be a woman and to be a woman with power? What does it really mean to be a woman and to be a minister? Why is it that women seem to think that they bring something that is so different? What is it that would make someone want to vote or prefer a woman other than the man? And I believe that when we talk about introducing an alternative concept of power, we need to move from that collective where we have the numbers of women in political parties, women in trade unions, women in academia, women abroad, women wherever they are, to get into the point where we allow women at the individual level to know themselves and to reflect and to decide the best way by which they can handle power, to decide indeed what issues they feel they can engage in and what issues they feel they cannot engage in. So I just want to, because I don't think I want to keep you for too long, I just want to say that we do have women who are in leadership in Kenya. They are in government and they are outside government. We do have very many women who are running now for political office. We actually have a woman leader of a political party, Honorable Julia Jambo, and we do know that Honorable Charity Ngilu indeed is also the chair of a political party. However, we find that the situation is such that women do not often translate their ability, their alternative concept of power, their numerical strength into political power that can shift and that can, in a way, change the course of politics and the course of leadership. And this is because many of the women come into politics with a limited transfer of skills of how it is that people engage in politics. Most of the women, I'm coming from academia, and I've been in the women's movement. But being in the women's movement and being in academia is a whole different ballgame from being in active elective politics. The way women and men are socialized is such that men assume, even before they know